Eric Carrier with the Lower Savannah Council of Governments. If he would come forward, and if you don't mind, sir, you talked a little bit last week, but I think it'd be helpful we've got a couple folks in the audience, but most for folks online and maybe even for council, just kind of give us maybe a brief update about the process when we hired y'all to come in and do this update, a 5-year plan, kind of how you went about that, and anything else you want to share in particular before we can.
Sure, absolutely. So back when we started this, I believe it was last late winter, early spring of 2021, essentially what we did was we met with, it was Libby Hodges was the planning director at the time, and the planning commission, and just sort of had a kickoff meeting to kind of go over the expectations and everything, and sort of the expectations were for the 5-year update to just sort of update all of the maps, all of the data and everything from the 2017 plan. And so we started that process off, and pretty much what we did was every month subsequent to that initial meeting, we would send in a draft chapter. The comprehensive plan has 10 required elements by state law, and so essentially what we did was each month submitted to the Planning Commission one of those, a draft version of one of those elements. Every 2 months we would actually meet in person with the Planning Commission, and we would go over the 2 drafts that we had sent to them within those past 2 months, and just have a discussion about what was in the draft elements, and if they had any questions or suggestions about it, we would go over that. If they had any revisions that they wanted to see, we would go back and make those changes before the next meeting. And so essentially that's what we did, and that process continued, I believe, until November of 2021. And essentially what we did was update all of those 10 elements that are required. I think there's more chapters than that just because North Augusta has a larger population and kind of has more going on, things that needed to be addressed, and so there were a few more chapters than just the 10. And so initially that's what we did, and I believe it was November or so we had a final meeting with the Planning Commission, and they approved the full document and recommended for council to view that draft.
Good, thank you. I think it's just for citizens to be aware that the full document's about 125 pages, if I'm not mistaken.
That's correct.
That is on our website. So, but there's a really nice piece, there's an introduction that I would tell you is about, 5, 6, 7 pages. That does a really nice job of a synopsis, would you say?
Yeah.
Kind of takes each chapter,
Yep.
and then kind of highlights. So it really gives some good information without having to necessarily, if you don't want to read the whole 125 pages.
Yeah, and then at the very end, also the appendix, it's got a lot of the maps and stuff like that, and those maps contain a lot of useful data to kind of give you a better visualization of some of the stuff that you might not be able to capture just from written text.
Can I just ask you a question about one of the maps?
Sure.
Put you on the spot here.
No, you're fine.
The chapter 2, the data piece is fantastic, but one of these maps I thought was very interesting. It was chapter 4. It's in a 3 different colored green.
Yeah.
And it shows living in North Augusta that work outside, then the folks who live outside who come in and work in North Augusta, and then the people who live in North Augusta. Thank you. Yeah.
What page is
my
it?
pages.
29 and 30?
30, actually.
Okay, I got
30,
you.
yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. So just so I make sure I'm right on this, and I know that people can't see it at home, but when it says because some of my eyes were the different colored green, the one that says employed and live in selection area, the circle, that 948, that's what that is, right?
Yes, sir.
So then there's a green bar coming across with the number 6,265. That's going to be 62, 65. Those are going to be folks who are employed in are select area of North Augusta but live outside.
That's correct.
And then there's 8,700 some odd that actually live in North Augusta but employed outside.
Yes, sir.
Okay, I just want to make sure I had those.
Yeah, yes, sir. And that comes from the census. That's data
Yeah,
from the
I
census.
just, I looked at the census, but I hadn't seen that. That was,
Yeah,
that's
it's
an interesting chart.
Yeah, so if you go to the Census Bureau's website, I think it's called On the Map is what that tool is. And
Some good data.
thank you.
Okay. Okay, I'll just, at this point, I'll open up for anybody. I don't know, we got a couple folks in the audience. If there's anything, citizens, any questions you would have, feel free to come down. Okay, if not, and I'll just turn over to the council. If you've got any questions or anything you'd like to talk to Eric about or for us to discuss, this would be a good time. So I'll just open it up to whoever. Ms. McCauley, you got anything?
Sorry, I'm getting my notes straight. I went through this in pretty good depth, and I had a lot of I was going to encourage people to, like Britton said, look over that introduction and really look over those pages on the goals and strategies. I thought that was broken down really nicely and simplified in a easy format for us all to understand, so I appreciated that. And then I kind of went through each section from there, so I have a few notes if you'll just kind of bear with me as I look through them. But on the housing section, starting at page 15, I was just going to point out that I liked that we were focusing on some of the infill development. I thought that was a nice positive to see. And then I thought it was also interesting, I had not heard of the neighborhood improvement program. So I thought that was a nice goal that we have on the horizon for that as well. The one question in that section that maybe you could clarify for me is the 617. Expand the definition and permissible size of accessory living units in residential areas of the city. Just kind of what does that mean exactly?
Okay, I'm trying to find it.
That was just my question mark.
Oh, okay. So an accessory living unit would be, you have your main house on a residence.
Mm-hmm.
So an accessory unit would, I'm guessing, it could either be just like another area on the property that is used as a residential space. That could be like a guest house, or maybe it's a house or a property that somebody might rent out or something that's also on their primary residence. So this is actually something that came from the previous comprehensive plan as well, so we kept it in there. It's one of the goals that was on the full update in the last one. And so what I'm assuming that they're meaning by that is the permissible size would be whatever size that is currently, I guess, in the zoning ordinance that allows for an accessory dwelling on a property to maybe increase the square footage allowance for that property. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
That does make sense. Thank you.
You're welcome.
On that same page on 6.2, I think we checked those two off, the one about promote mixed income neighborhoods through North Augusta. I think the Bluegrass Mealing Tract property is a perfect example of that. As well as, the revised zoning ordinance, the whole code rewrite is underlined in a number of these.
Okay.
We're touching a number of these with the code rewrite, so.
Is that something that you would want to just still keep leaving there, or do you think?
Oh, yeah,
Okay.
no, I think, well, I'll wait and I'll make my comments after.
All right, and then I'll just go through most of the things that I liked, and then when the questions arise, I'll go. But on the park section, I love that we're working on towards updating the master plan. I think that's really important for our future for the parks. I was curious with reading on the parks plan, and this might be questions, Jim, you can stop me if I'm asking questions that should be answered later, but working with schools to share playgrounds, I was just that's a new concept that I hadn't read through or heard, and was curious. Just kind of since that's set in our goals, if that's something council had looked at or considered. No.
I think it's probably fairly low down.
Okay. I just saw it in there. I was like, oh, that's interesting.
We're trying to deal with the parking piece.
All right. Okay. Let's see here.
Councilwoman, I think as we move forward on a couple different projects, one of the areas that we may be looking forward to in the 5 to 10 year horizon is, where can playgrounds or park spaces be integrated into future locations? So, for example, as we start to think about, Fire Station 4, depending on how much, acreage that we get for that facility, could we integrate something along those lines so you don't have a pure park per se, but you get kind of a 2-for-1 on that? I think that's probably more towards the realistic piece as we move forward. And then we certainly are looking to explore our relationship with the school district on how we do share our facilities going forward. And I guess I could also incorporate playgrounds as you would incorporate that there. But I think that's certainly something we could take a look at. But I would agree with the mayor. That's probably lower on the spectrum of, opportunities we're exploring.
Sounds good. And then I think probably a lot of my notes can be answered throughout the different departments, but I was going to also just point out, which I thought it was interesting, pages 64 and 65 on the downtown riverfront draft and the maps that are located there. I just would encourage all of us to take a look at it, and citizens too, and see our thoughts on if that progress is, that's what I would like to see happen, but.
Anything else?
No, I'm good.
Mr. Brooks,
You're good.
anything for you? You good?
I have a few. I thought the population study was done very well.
Thank you.
It used the year 2000, 2010, and 2019. And those numbers are right on where we are basically, and maybe a little more this time of the year.
Yeah, whenever this was initially done, the 2020 census data hadn't been published yet, but now I think it's sitting at, it's in the 2019 estimate was 23,845. I think it's almost 1,000 more from on the 2020 census than what's shown here.
Good. Also, I thought it was interesting that in 2019, the median age was 40.6 in North Augusta. In Aiken County was 39.4, and in South Carolina was 41.0, the average age. So that's telling me there's still a lot of young folks here. And one interesting note was the college-age students in North Augusta. Their postgraduate age is higher when it's compared to the county and the state. And that means they're moving back. That tells me they're moving back into North Augusta after graduation.
Yes, sir.
Which is a good thing. And in the housing, I thought on page 10, I thought that was pretty interesting too. Owner occupied, 66.1%. Renters are 33.9%. Family households, 66.2%. And the number of persons in a household is 2.1. Those are interesting to me, very interesting. Then on page 15, under your goals, improvements in the neighborhoods, which was mentioned, or sidewalks, not only new sidewalks, but repair and expansion of the existing sidewalks, upgrade lighting, landscaping, and these much-needed wayfinding signs that we looked at 6 months ago and we haven't seen them, so. A year ago. Before I got them. Okay.
And I will say the Arts MPO, they're currently working on a bicycle and pedestrian facilities study. And so they should be looking at this area, and typically one of the things that they're going to cover is maybe identifying all the areas where there are sidewalks, where there aren't, where there's sidewalks that are in need of repair. So that probably is something that's going to be published within the next 12 to 18 months. So that would be really, I think, a useful tool for the city of North Augusta, too, to be able to see with regards to that stuff.
I think we have representation on that as well. One thing that encouraged me was the infill development as is being proposed here. on undeveloped lots. That's a good thing, so we don't have donut holes throughout the city. So let's get them by the end of the year, Jim. He also mentions preserving the historic structures in the city, those that are, that meet the criteria to be restored. That's a good thing. Page 35 is just a comment. I believe this is the Knox Avenue plan. Could you highlight that a little bit?
Yeah, so this is actually a design that was done by the previous consultant, and so all of these designs and stuff that they had in here were sort of kept in there. Do you have like a more specific question, or are you asking like where it came from?
No, one idea they had was on the, I believe it was the northern plan. It's where they will use the underutilized parking lots
Okay.
and try to bring new investment into those parking lots. That's a great idea. And then on Knox, let's see, the central plan. Let me regress just a moment. We have talked about on Knox Avenue, new side streets for connectivity, more planning medians, and more walkable areas. I don't know where that is, but we have discussed that in the past. On page 36 on your central plan, this really refers more to the big box retail redevelopment, where you go in and try to bring people in or businesses in that will utilize those open spaces. And if you can't, then cut it up so other businesses may be able to. And then on page 37 is the southern plan. And it shows a lot of new buildings, mixed use, and a commercial area. But what I did pick off page 39 under the goals was training and other incubators to attract and retain new and small businesses. I think that's right on target here. Small towns need small businesses.
Yes, sir. And I think a big issue too with a lot of the small businesses is their inability to survive for a very long period of time, because a lot of them don't have the education and knowledge and resources, and so maybe being able to provide that for new business owners is something that'll make them be able to last, you know.
And then we may have to look at changing some of the codes, like how many parking spaces do you need? Park on the street.
Yeah.
Those are the kind of things we need to look at. Tommy. That's all I have. Thank you.
You're welcome. Anybody else?
Mine's not really probably a question for Eric, just more of a thought for us as a council. I mean, this is very similar to what we had the previous 5 years. With the infill development, I think the big issue we're going to have, and we've already seen instances of it, nobody wants their neighborhood touched. They don't want it next to them. That is something we are going to have to look at very hard. It's already happened with Knollwood. I don't think anything even got past the planning for the parcel right there next to the Rapids, but I was getting phone calls left and right from Rapids residents. Nobody wants it to tie in. So we got to be very careful with that. On the retail spaces, you know, I would love to see some development of some of the older ones, but, you know, again, we can't make somebody do that. That's the problem. I don't know if there's a good way to incentivize people to use some of the, you know, existing spaces, before we go out and build, new shopping centers. But it's just something to think about. I mean, I think there's a misconception that our job is to bring businesses here. It's not. We can't make a business come here, but we should look at maybe some options of doing that as we move forward, because we do have some older, shopping centers around town that, some of the anchor stores have left. I pick on Bilo. Bilo's gone. That whole area's, very empty. Across the street, kind of the same thing. I believe the Antique Mini Mall has closed down now. So, we do have some open spaces, and we need to seriously look at, how to revitalize some of those. I would rather see those utilized before we, start looking at new development coming. Just some notes. It was not really a question for you, but, overall, I think we're all on board with heading the same way I think we wanted to head.
I think so. When this was done in 2017, the concern from Planning Commission, when I was on at that time, was in the past, quite frankly, we probably have spent a lot of money in these comprehensive plans, and we kind of put them up on the shelf, both sides, Planning Commission, City Council. And there really was a wanting to make sure that this became a working document. And I will tell you, I commend former Mayor Bob Pettit, the two previous councils. If you look through these goals, a lot of the items have been worked on, and we're working on them. We've added some of this last year. So for me, for citizens, what you need to realize is we are taking this as a working document. It doesn't mean that every single one of these absolutely makes sense today, that it maybe it did in 2017, but I think, Eric, what you just said, same thing with Bob and Jen, the point is, this is good data, good information, and as we continue to move forward in our strategic planning or growth discussions, this is a document we need to be using. But as far as citizens, they want to know, has a city been using this comprehensive plan? If you go through this, there's quite a number of these things I can tell you I can check off that the previous administration has done, what we have done the last year, and what we're going to continue to do. So as far as citizens, they ought to feel good about this. We are making this a working document, which is all the communities that have embraced a comprehensive plan, they will tell you they've made it a working document, they're using it. So I think y'all did a good job.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. If there's nothing else from anybody else, Eric, thank you for your support.
Oh, you're welcome.
And at this time, I'm going to close the public hearing, and we'll have a break before we get started again. We stand adjourned. Good evening. I'd like to call the City of North Augusta regular City Council meeting for May the 16th, 2022 to order. And if you are you're welcome to join me in prayer. Dear God, as we come together tonight to do the business of the city, we ask for your guidance and discernment. I ask that you continue to open our hearts and minds to what is shared tonight. Amen. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We'll start the roll call from my far left.
Eric Presnell.
David McGee.
Pat Carpenter.
Britton Williams.
Bob Brooks.
Jennifer McCauley.
Kevin Toole.
Okay, item 4, approval of minutes. Are there any additions, deletions, or corrections to the regular City Council meeting minutes of May the 2nd, 2022, or the study session minutes of May the 9th, 2022? Okay, hearing none, they stand approved as distributed. Thank you. Okay, we've got 2 proclamations, and the great thing about it, I can sit here and read them tonight. So I guess when we read them to entities, I don't have to hand them to anybody. So the first one will be our National Law Enforcement Week, which is the week of May the 15th through 21st. Whereas in 1962, President Kennedy proclaimed May the 15th as National Police Officers Memorial Day, and the calendar week in which May the 15th falls is National Police Week. Whereas established by a joint resolution of Congress in 1962, National Police Week pays special recognition to those law enforcement officers who have lost their lives in the line of duty for the safety and protection of others. And whereas the members of the law enforcement agencies in the City of North Augusta play an essential role in safeguarding the rights and freedoms of the citizens of North Augusta. And whereas it is important that all citizens know and understand the duties, responsibilities, hazards, and sacrifices of their law enforcement officers, and that law enforcement officers recognize their duty to serve the people of this community by protecting them against violence and disorder. And whereas law enforcement officers of the City of North Augusta unceasingly provide a public service. Now, therefore, I, Britton S. Williams, Mayor of the City of North Augusta, South Carolina, proclaim the week of May the 15th through the 21st, 2022, as National Law Enforcement Week, and call upon all citizens in the community to especially honor and show our sincere appreciation for the officers of the city by our thanking the men and women who make it possible for us to leave our homes safely each day, return knowing we are protected by men and women willing to sacrifice their lives if necessary to guard our loved ones, property, and government against all who would violate the law. In witness whereof, I have hereunto set my hand and caused the seal of the City of North Augusta, South Carolina, to be affixed the 16th day of May, 2022. And I think this is very appropriate. I think we all will agree when it comes to safety, our public safety are the best. And that's Chief John Thomas and his 3 captains, Billy Luckey, who's captain of the patrol operations, Charles Williams, who's a captain of the fire division, Joe Count is captain of criminal investigations, and of course their sergeants, their lieutenants, the PSOs, and dispatchers. This entire organization does a wonderful job to make this one of the assets of our community, which is safety. So I think it's well deserved, and we thank everybody for our public safety for that. Okay, our next proclamation is Public Works Week. Whereas public works professionals facilitate, whereas public works professionals focus on infrastructure, facilities, and services that are of vital importance to sustainable and resilient communities and to the public health, high quality of life, and well-being of the people of North Augusta. And whereas these infrastructure, facilities, and services could not be provided without the dedicated efforts of public works professionals who are engineers, managers, and employees at all levels of government and the private sector, who are responsible for rebuilding, improving, and protecting our city's transportation, water supply, water treatment, sanitary and storm water sewage, and the solid waste systems, public buildings, and other structures and facilities essential for our citizens. And whereas it is a public interest for the citizens, civic leaders, and children in North Augusta to gain knowledge of and maintain an ongoing interest and understanding of the importance of public works and public works programs in this community. And whereas this year, 2022, marks the 62nd Annual National Public Works Week, sponsored by the American Public Works Association. Now therefore, I, Britton S. Williams, Mayor of the City of North Augusta, South Carolina, do hereby proclaim the week, May the 15th through the 21st of 2022, as Public Works Week in the City of North Augusta, and I urge all citizens to pay tribute to our public works professionals and to recognize the substantial contributions they make protecting our health, safety, comfort, and quality of life. In witness whereof, I have hereunto set my hand and caused the seal of the City of North Augusta, South Carolina, to be affixed the 16th day of May, 2022. This our engineering, public works, and our public services are another two large departments. And our engineering, public works, to kind of give you some personalized, our director is Tom Zeeser, who runs that. He's also our engineer. And our three superintendents. Mark Timmerman is superintendent of our building standards. David Caudell is superintendent of our streets and drains. And Tanya Strickland, superintendent of stormwater management. And all of those folks and their folks work under them do an amazing job. Our next area that falls under this is public services, and our director is James Sutton. And his superintendents are Ryan Metz, who is superintendent of utility operations, Jason Sykes, who is superintendent of sanitation services, Roy Kibler, who's our superintendent of property maintenance, and Greg Schaffer holds down our water production. Again, under public services, James and his superintendents and their staff do an amazing job to allow us to be able to function as citizens every day, little things that we don't think about. But if they don't work, trust me, people are going to be upset about it. So we're very fortunate in North Augusta to have a quality of public service as well as public safety. And I think it's great that we can recognize both these entities this week. So thank you all for that. Okay, we're going to move to item number 7. Planning and Development. Ordinance number 2022-06, an ordinance adopting a 5-year update to the 2017 Comprehensive Plan for the City of North Augusta. Do I have a motion to approve this ordinance on first reading?
So moved.
Ms. McCauley, is there a second? Mr. Presnell, thank you. We just had a public hearing, but anything you need to add about this, Ms. Clifford, for folks?
Just as a reminder for the council and for our citizens, the state of South Carolina requires all municipalities to do a 5-year update to their comprehensive plan, and will be scheduled, if passed, then we'll have a requirement 5 years from now to do a complete redo of the comprehensive plan. So this is, again, a statute requirement by the state of South Carolina for us to move forward on this item.
We just had a public hearing, but I will, just so we can have for the record, any public comments, anyone, citizens who have anything they want to say? Okay, any further council discussion? Okay, great, hearing none, I'll ask for a vote. All in favor, raise your hand. And that is unanimous, thank you. Item 8, zoning, ordinance number 2022-07, to amend the zoning map of the City of North Augusta, South Carolina by rezoning plus or minus 2.72 acres of land owned by Barbara Andrews Ross, a portion of Aiken County tax parcel number 005-19-02-031 from CR critical areas to R7 small lot single family residential. Do I have a motion to approve this ordinance on first reading? Mr. Presnell, is there a second? Mr. Brooks? Second. Who was that, Brooks or McGee? Mr. Brooks, got you. He got you this time, David. Anything you'd like to share on this, Mr. Clifford?
So to orient the council to the map that is currently shown that potentially our citizens are seeing there, you've got the tan portion which is highlighted, which directly abuts Mossy Creek Elementary School. South of that school there on 5 Notch Road. And so what the owner is petitioning to do is to rezone that portion of that property from CR to R7 for the express purpose of putting in townhomes that would abut 5 Notch Road and have connectivity to Mossy Creek schools. So I know there was a fair amount of discussion on this topic at the last study session. I also asked Mr. Paradise as our planning and development director to stay put for this in case there were follow-on questions from the council if we get into deeper waters, and I can cover.
Okay. Thank you. I know the developer is here, and he may want to speak, but before I just open it up for any citizen comments. Chad, if you would come, give your name and address for the record, please, and then anything you'd like to share.
Yes, sir. Chad Blackston, 753 Sweetwater Road. I believe in your packet, the updated map that we did of our layout did not get included. And that may have been the reason for the discussion. Could I give each of you a copy so that you could see?
Come on. Yeah, give it to Sharon, she can do it.
This was the plan that was presented to the Planning Commission prior to this meeting, but I don't think y'all saw this one. Based on a wetlands mitigation study that we
Go ahead and
had.
talk about this for us, if you want
Sir?
to talk to us about this.
Okay, based on a wetlands mitigation study that we had done, we had to revise this plan, and if you were looking at the previous plan, on 5 Notch, where the wetlands come out, basically where that tan portion starts on that map behind you, we revised it so we don't touch or encroach on any of the wetlands.
Okay. Any questions? We got the boss up here, so.
Yeah, just real quick, Mr. Blackston. You know, I know that area pretty well, and that's what I think I brought up, that it flooded a while back and the road caved in there. So who looked at was it a site engineer or something that looked at the portion that we're rezoning to say that, hey, this is okay, it's out of that area, you know, or did? Just
Yes, sir.
curious on that.
If you see on this map, the hashed areas that are the closest one to where we're talking about on 5 Notches, where the green and the tan meet there.
Right.
That is out of the wetland area. Now, the actual flooding that you're talking about was below the detention.
Right.
At the very bottom of that map, you can see the line of the actual floodplain. So that's a 100-year floodplain that's running along the very edge of the property. We're not getting anywhere near
Okay.
that. But the previous plan, you wouldn't believe they were wetlands, but in the middle of that field, there are some places that are actually mitigated as wetlands. So we
During the winter, you can see it pretty good. When the leaves fall, you can look back there and actually see it. Yeah.
Cranston is our engineer, and they had a delineation done, and James Dean is handling that for us, but he wasn't able to be here tonight.
Okay.
And you reduced these units, right?
Yes, sir, significantly.
I'm about to say, there are a lot, yes, okay. Yeah, when you put it up against the one you gave us, it makes all the difference.
Yes, sir.
I got you now,
We
okay.
we didn't have the delineation done at the time that was presented. That's why we gave a new one to the Planning
Okay.
Commission. Yes, sir.
What's the price range of these homes?
This is projected to be very similar to what we've done at the retreat. That's a moving target right now as far as the price range is concerned. But I plan for this to be very similar to what we did at the retreat off of Walnut Lane.
Those have done well.
So my question, and I guess I want to preface it by saying, one, this makes me feel better about it, just the reduced units. How many units are in the new plan?
It's on the top left corner, I believe it's.
I see the writing. My eyes don't work that well.
61?
Yeah,
61.
61.
So that's, yeah, I mean, that makes me feel better. I think my biggest concern with it is, one, you know, anytime we're converting anything from a CR to something else, it kind of puts some red flags up. Pulling it off, the questions I had last week were more about not necessarily the direct impact of the construction on the wetlands, but with the stress that's on that pole branch, watershed, whatever it's called at that point, what's the addition, what is that additional construction, what kind of effect does it have on that watershed that's already stressed out? I mean, how do we know what sort of the downstream effects of that development are going to be on that? And have we done any analysis
Well,
to determine that?
The engineers, when we get into the engineering of that, the engineers handle that through the detention pond. So it takes any watershed and slows it to the point to allow it to get into Pole Branch. It would slow it down to the rate it's at now, basically.
Okay.
Councilman, our current issues of Pole Branch are generally upstream of this
Yeah,
location.
well, and I realize that, but I mean, that obviously that
Yeah.
that is still
Yeah,
also
still gonna
upstream.
get there,
Just
yeah.
I mean, it's not going to solely push it over the edge. There's already plenty of just, you know, what's the straw at which the camel's back cracks with that additional volume coming off of it. But you know, knocking 100 roughly, well, 47. I can't remember how many we're only reached, but you know, basically almost cutting it in half makes me feel a little bit better about the impact.
I will just add that I had some of the same concerns that Kevin did with the impact on, not necessarily on the actual development property, but the after stormwater drainage and things like that into the Pole Branch area. So I guess my concern would be is if we go ahead and approve it without that happening, without having that engineering data already, are we setting ourselves up for something that we would have to fix at a later date? Or
Well, all we're doing right now is rezoning that little tiny piece that is the entrance to the property that we're projecting to do this on. So that all would come back before you again at a later date. The current owners do not want to, actually, that's not in the city right now. So that's going to have to be annexed into the city. But the reason that it's in CR the way it is right now is because that was a tax map back in the, I want to say it was the 80s, when the water line and the water tower got built. That got put into the city. And that's why this is in CR, because of Pole Branch at the bottom of it. But where it is tan on your map is not wetlands at all, but it all got grouped together because it was one tax map parcel at that time. And so we're just wanting to take that out of CR. Our intention, when it gets annexed into the city, there is going to be a ton of green space that we don't touch on this property, and we're going to put that in CR all along that creek. All of that floodplain will be put back into that, but that's at a later date after we get through with the engineering.
You'll still have some hoops to jump through.
Many.
Yes. So yeah, today, we're just strictly the rezoning piece, and then he'll have to go again. That's when Tanya and everyone else comes through with their piece with the site to say, hey, is it going to fit? So,
Yes, sir.
I think this has been very helpful. Any other questions for Chad?
Well, one thing, Chad, and I don't know if it'd be too Chad, but somebody asked about sidewalks, because I know you're going to be right there at Mossy Creek. Will they, because I'm sure there'll be children moving in that area that would walk to the school, because have we ever done, and this is on the other side of Mossy Creek, remember the lady that came about sidewalks, that those children could walk to Mossy
There
Creek?
was a citizen concern, Councilwoman, about rushing waters and the fact that
Rushing,
there's
yeah, I
no
couldn't think of the name.
sidewalk connectivity. So there's sidewalks in rushing waters to the street, but then there's no connecting sidewalk from the development to the school. And I believe Councilman Brooks brought that to the council's attention during the study session about, hey, is there going to be a sidewalk here from this development into the Mossy
Yeah,
Creek
that's-
Elementary is the fundamental question, which I can't answer, but potentially Chad could.
Well, what we did in the retreat is what I would mimic here, and there's sidewalks throughout on both sides of the road. But when it comes out to 5-notch, I honestly don't know how that decel lane and how that works and how that would have to work for the school for connecting. But we would have sidewalks that came all the way out.
Yeah, but they're concerned with, once they leave your, well, not yours, but the other one, Rushing, but it was, you know, they wanted sidewalks that, because the way it is now, you're walking in the grass, which is very dangerous for a child. And I don't know if anybody's even walking there, but she was concerned with
Well, I've
that.
already had another call farther back down toward George Avenue about the issue with sidewalks. So I think this is something we're going to have to address.
Yeah.
I think, so.
Well, we do
I don't know
need
how
to
that looks like, what does that look like, but this is something we'll need to be addressing.
address from our Walton rehab houses right there by Hammond Grove Baptist Church.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, 5-notch almost
But
needs
that's something we'll
sidewalks.
have to
yeah.
do. We're
All
going
the
to
way.
do.
Well,
different.
that and 5-notch itself goes in and out of the city a couple of times to get to that point. And I mean, that's something we need to look at with the expansion where, you know, the growth we're having. That's something we may have to get, you know, Tom Young and Bill Hickson in on that because, you know, at some point 5-notch is going to have to be widened. So, you know, I'm kind of like, do you put in sidewalks now or wait?
Any other questions specifically about this project, Mr. Black?
I guess I would just add that maybe when they go to finish working on the next phase of this, maybe just go ahead and consider putting a piece of sidewalk from your entrance up to the school property. And then we can talk to the school about getting it to that.
Yeah, that's something that had to be worked out with the school, because I know that decel lane, and they put all their traffic right there. So
Yeah.
that'd be something that they'd have to
So,
engineer and sign off on how they wanted that to go.
yeah, I would just
We'd be
suggest
sending the
that
kids
maybe-
right into the traffic.
Yeah.
Right there.
No, I'm just saying, I would suggest that you ask them to look at how they can
Yeah,
design
I don't think
that
that's a bad
piece.
idea at all.
Yeah.
Yes.
I will say that what we market to is not really a lot of children. In the retreat, out of 86, I don't know that we have any children in there. It's mostly older folks that are wanting to downsize.
People getting old like me, they want to be a flat. And they want to try to live
Don't
a
want to have a lot of maintenance. But it's young professionals or downsizing. That's really what they.
Very good. Any other questions for? Thank you. I think
Yes, sir.
that's some
Thank
good
you.
information. Okay. Now that he has spoken, any citizen comments? Okay, council, any further discussion from us? Okay, here none, I'm going to ask for a vote. All in favor? And that is unanimous. Thank you. Okay, item number 9, engineering and public works. Resolution number 2022-20, authorizing a professional engineering services contract for the Pole Branch Watershed Remediation. Anything you'd like to share about, do I have a motion to approve this resolution?
So moved.
Mr. Toole, second. Ms. Carpenter, thank you. Now, anything you'd like to share, Mr. Clifford?
No changes from our study session, Mr. Mayor and council members, but just as a reminder for our citizens at home, we are operating under a grant budget up to $204,750, which is 100% reimbursable for technical assistance in our remediation for the Pole Branch Watershed. The city has previously entered into a contract with Cranston Engineering to the amount of $73,500, and this resolution is asking for an additional $99,825, which still keeps us under the total cap of $204,750. Again, this does not actually do shovel in the groundwork for Pole Branch, but this will give us the final set of drawings for being able to move forward and do a remediation in Pole Branch.
Okay, very good. Any citizen comments? Okay, any council discussion? Hear none, I ask for a vote. All in favor? And that is unanimous. Thank you. Okay, anything under administrative reports?
No, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, so we're now here at item 11, presentation, communication, recognition of visitors. This is opportunity for any citizens in the audience who would like to speak to mayor and council regarding any matter not listed on the agenda. I just ask you to come forward, state your name and address for the record if you do. Okay, at this point, I've just got a couple reminders I'm going to mention, but before I do that, anything for council? Pat, you got anything?
And I was going to give this to Jim tonight. Miss Sue Jack, she's a citizen who lives in the Commons off Hidden Hill Road. You know, when you turn in Hidden Hill back to the right. She said there's some tree roots, and she thinks the trees are on city property, but the roots are, and I really couldn't understand. I told her I was going to have you call her so she could explain, and I have her number here and her address.
All right, just a couple things to remind folks about. Sharon gave me this, and I've already lost. Oh, here it is. Okay. Tonight, if you haven't, folks in the audience, you haven't had dinner yet, please go by the Snow Cap. They're having celebrity waiter night. Kim and Eddie Butler, as well as Representative Bill Hickson, his wife Elaine, are going to be the hosts and waiters. So all the money raised will go toward Children's Place, which is therapeutic services. They're in Aiken, but they do a lot of work here in North Augusta, and it's a great organization. So I just ask folks out there to watch the live stream, go to Snowcap tonight, and help a very good cause. Let's see. Just want to let everybody know again about the rocking and rafting that's coming up June the 4th. You can go to our website. If you want to get on the water, we'll have plenty of opportunity. We got plenty of people who don't want to be on the water. That's okay too. We're going to have live music. We're going to have food trucks. So it's going to be a great time to be around the amphitheater and be near the water, even if you don't want to get on in it. So rocking and rafting, excited about that. And then to kind of get you in the mood, this Saturday, the Merchants Alliance and North Augusta Board are having the Downtown Spring Fest from 10 to 4. So that'll be on Pine Grove and the parking lot behind Sheila's. So that'll be blocked off strictly for that. They'll have vendors. They're going to have food there. Cheerleaders, going to have a community stage. So that'll be a fun event. So we're going to have a fun event this Saturday, and then we're going to have a big fun event on June the 4th when school lets out. And the last thing is every year we made a contribution of $500 was made from the City Council Contingency Fund to sponsor the Aiken County Public Schools 2022 graduation ceremonies. I just wanted to get that on the record. And with that, that's all I have. So unless anything else for the good order, we stand adjourned. Thank you.